episode 238, How to Journal and Why.
You're listening to the very best podcast in the world on health, wealth, and happiness. Please remember to leave a review and share with all your friends and family. And here is your host, Lars Hilser.
And it's Wednesday. Welcome to the very best podcast in the world, your only source in the universe for personal supremacy through health, wealth, and happiness. And today we're going to talk about journaling. So why did I choose this episode? Well, ever since I started journaling a few years ago, well, really a lot of years ago, it was more of a diary, right? I kind of put down what I expected of the day, what I fulfilled during the day, and the main outstanding experiences of that day. Now, that soon became or was replaced when I switched to the Apple universe and I used my phone to just take pictures, right? And I would weed out those that were important, and among them were jots of notes that I had written down. There were, memorable experiences that I captured. And, it was something to really look back upon. And, Apple kind of perverted this and made events out of it. And, you could look back at a day and, something you could, you would associate a picture of a meal that you've had with notes that you'd taken. And, all of that put together became this magical little journal replacement for a while. Right. But what I couldn't do really was put together the pictures and the memories and, the handwritten notes. Right. And so I returned to the notebooks, of which I have, quite a few dozen meanwhile. I try every day to sit down and write down a few things of the day, which we're going to go through today, because if you, look at what a journal is, right? It's a kind of a logbook of your life. What went well, what didn't go so well, what you'd missed, your emotions in regards to certain experiences that you've had, and so on and so forth. So you can go through great lengths and write, spend an hour of your day really, or multiple hours of your day actually writing down, what was really important to you, what stood out, and, how you felt, and so on and so forth. But that kind of defeats the purpose, because essentially you want this to be short, because your day is going to be busy and you want to free it up as much as possible. However, due to the stress level that a lot of us are exposed to, we don't want to forget. And one of the other main goals of journaling, at least for me, is to self-improve. That's why we're going to go through a mere 3 things that a journal should include. Again, this is up to you how you journal, how much time you spend on it. The importance is that you do it, that you're disciplined about doing it, and that you actually figure out a way in which you can learn from yourself, and that things don't really get forgotten. So before we get started, as always, we're going to go through the housekeeping section really briefly. Number 1, sharing is caring. So please share these episodes. Reason I repeatedly mentioned this and do so first now is an email I received a while ago where someone had, coincidentally found one of our podcast episodes in the social feed of a friend, and it really improved their life according to what they wrote. So that was an incentive for me to really implore on all of you guys and gals out there to share the content far and wide, because it's actually really having an impact on the lives of people out there in your sphere of influence. Speaking of sphere of influence, it's really, if one episode really reflects on you and you say, hey, listen, that one person that I know could really, really benefit from this episode, make sure to share it with them directly, right? So that they know it's coming from you. It's a heartfelt approach for them to improve with something that you consider they could really improve upon. And therefore, just make it this personal invitation to our little club here. That being said, item number 2 on the housekeeping list is views are my own, yada, yada, blah, doesn't reflect blah. Item number 3, remodeling mode. Episodes are a bit shorter, a bit more concise, a bit more condensed. I hope the point does come across nonetheless. I don't want to let you guys down. So that's why, despite the fact that my days are rather hellish, and I think I'm on an average of 4 hours of sleep per day, I still try to squeeze in an episode. Now that we've got that covered, how do we journal, right? So we don't want to take a phone. That's number 1. We want to get our eyes off of any, screens lighting at us. Yes, I know there's the color filters that activate during night, blah. It doesn't work. Really, there are too many distractions in there that will keep you and give you plenty of opportunity to procrastinate away from what we actually want to achieve. And that's really down to 3 major things, which should be in a journal. Again, don't mistake this for the holy grail of self-improvement. It's not that. You're going to have to find your own way. You're going to have to find, your own little features that you want to include. And I encourage you not to look on YouTube, because you will end up spending hours journaling per day. Right? If you spend half a day journaling, that half a day is going to be lost from your life unrecoverably. I hope that's an English word. So the 3 points that should be in a journal entry, which you should do every day, regardless, of what day it is, and find out what time suits you best. Find out which situation is best for you. For a lot of us, it's really when we go to bed, you reflect on the day, or, if you're the morning person and you can reflect upon the previous day in the morning and say, some of these things went well, this and blah, then do it in the morning, for God's sakes. It's your thing, right? It's your journal, essentially. So what goes in a journal? Well, again, there's 3 major things, right? Item number 1 is to reflect on what went well. Right? We want to kind of emphasize the positive here, right? However, following that, what we want to include in the journal is what didn't go so well, right? Why are we doing this? These are 2 items that are kind of really opposing to each other. I think that's the correct pronunciation, or the correct words I'm looking for. And the reason we want to do that is because we want to learn, right? So reflect on what went well, write those items down, and then you're going to get a gist later on of why it went well. Let me give you an example. When I started out really looking for customers, one of the most successful avenues, as it turns out, to gain customers in the cybersecurity field, but not that alone, all the other fields I was in were people who were in politics. They had access, to not only the political environment, but also to the economic environment. So plus, they were insanely trustworthy, and therefore they could give me access to the people that I wanted to speak to. Not necessarily that I knew that I wanted to speak to them, but it was the ideas that these people were convinced of, my ideas. And that's how that really got me a lot of traction in the business world while approaching others, and just the normal quote unquote business people that I wanted to speak to were quite deflective, right? But if the bug was planted into their ear through a politician or, whatever, they would listen. And that's how I really learned through journaling what went well, right? And what didn't. So, the same item that you're trying to achieve could be on both levels, right? They could be something that went well and that didn't go so well, right? Talking to The chief executives was kind of pain in the ass, right? And talking to the politicians gave me indirect access to that same level of people, and essentially ended up putting food on my table and more, but that's something I had to learn with bitter tears. And it took me quite a while to figure that out. So, those two items, while they are separate, could represent the same thing. And what you want to do, and what I always do, is to mention one thing that I can improve on, right? So in the case that I just mentioned, it was, I'm not going to talk, or I'm not going to attempt to speak to the chief executives anymore. I'm just going to increase my relationships with those people who actually have indirect access. Right. Now, this was business, but it goes for the personal side of things as well, right? So what went well on your exercise routine, for instance? What went well in your meal intake? Did you follow your good food, your good diet guidance rules that you set for yourself? Were you disciplined? Did you take in too much sugar, as I did tonight? Just for the shit of it, I had a bottle of Coke, which, was tons of sugar. But due to the fact that I'm, kind of burning 10 gazillion calories a day, flipping logs through the garden, it's kind of excusable. I needed it. But, all of those things are items that should go into the journal. But, those are the really personal, intimate things. But what about relationships? Were you fair and just to your spouse, right? Did you really fuck up somewhere? Is there room for improvement? And what is the one thing you can improve upon tomorrow? And since we're speaking of tomorrow, I think these three items are really something to reflect upon. And I'm going to leave you with that. I'm going to leave you for the rest of your Wednesday. And if you've already had your Wednesday, have a good night. And we'll be in touch tomorrow when we're going to talk about doing what you love. In that sense, have a nice rest of your day. See you tomorrow, folks. Bye.